So in this video, what I want to do is talk to you about what it means to make 7 or 8 figures a year, what it means to make 6 figures, and what it means to be stuck at 5 figures or lower than that. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is because I run a business that has about $1 million a month in payroll and general expenses. And so I have to be very, very familiar with who it is that I can bring on at 7 figures, 6 figures, 5 figures. And I want to start off by telling you that it really, really frustrates me that I can't find enough people that are qualified to get put in 6 and 7 figure positions. It actually drives me crazy. It really, really sucks. I'm in the market for it. We're a growing business, and I just feel perpetually frustrated. So I'm going to make this video for a couple different reasons. One is that I'm hoping that you could be one of those people. You're probably not, if I'm being honest, but I'm going to talk about what it would mean. But I'm also talking about this so that you can start making more cash. Okay, and I'm going to talk to you about the major qualities that I believe anybody could use to get to 7-figure income and beyond. Okay, now the first thing, by the way, is that you've got to get it out of your head that 6 figures a year is good. Just get that out of your head. In this day and age, with everything going on, that is not a good income. You've got to up your standard there. So please, please, please get it out of your head that that is good. That is not normal. Okay, any more than the standard American diet is normal, any more than the typical marriage where people are bickering with each other is normal. What you call normal is not normal. That is just called the masses. Get yourself out of that mode, okay? So get it in your head right off the bat that you are a high 6-figure or 7-figure earner off the bat. Once you have that sense of identity, what's going to happen is that even when you go down, and believe me, I've gone down many, many times, you're going to quickly readjust because you have that as a standard in your mind. I remember at one point, I lived with my buddy, Big Mike. He runs Advanced Nutrients, and they're actually the biggest marijuana nutrient company in the world. I've never smoked weed in my life, but we had a lot of commonality because we both had these kind of like rebellious businesses. And he would do things like, he would get Christmas tree lights that were $50,000 just for Christmas tree lights. And that put it in my head that is normal. Oh, okay, so 50K, that is normal for Christmas tree lights, okay? So part of the reason why you want to get around people of higher standards is because they will change your view of what's normal. I will tend to live in neighborhoods where, you know, rent could be 50K a month or 80K a month. And I do that specifically because I want to normalize that in my head. So it's okay to stretch to get around better people, to normalize that because it changes your selective focus. So that's the first thing. You've got to get it in your head that it's not okay. It's like an illness to be making less than 6 figures and, you know, ideally 7 figures and beyond. Just get that in your head now. And I'm not somebody who's even money-oriented. I'm somebody who's artistically and creatively oriented. And that's what I'm saying. If I was money-oriented, I'd be talking about a lot more. But I'm creatively oriented. So in my view, you should be able to be an artist and do something you love and still get paid that kind of money. Okay, so that's the first thing is identity. Now, the next thing, and this is very, very sad, but a major mindset that's been instilled into our society, and this is partly due to what's called a culture war, and a lot of the enemies of the West have kind of gradually seeped this into our culture so that we could actually implode. Okay, why nuke somebody when you could just infect the culture with something that it's like a cultural rot and it implodes, and that is a basic level entitlement mentality or victim mentality. Now, as soon as you have been in any way, shape, or form infected with entitlement mentality or victim mentality, it's basically done 2 different things to you. Victim mentality right off the bat, what it does is you could be looking at an entire picture, right? Like we're sitting here in Redwood National Park. I think it's actually Jedediah Smith, right? We're in the Redwood area, some of the biggest trees in the world. We're gonna go do some great shoots today, okay? I'm just here with my family. So what happens is, imagine you're seeing like this full picture here in the Redwoods, and there's a bunch of water here, and there's rocks here, and we have my kids there, and there's trees there. Reticular activation system, it's your selective focus. The way that it works is that you don't believe what you see. Okay, you don't see something and believe it. Rather, you see what you believe. You ever seen it where somebody could watch my video, say that you like my videos, somebody watches it and they say, oh, this video sucks, but you got a lot of value out of this video and you can't see why? That's because they likely have a preconceived notion going into the video that it sucks and they're looking for reasons why. Likewise, those people who don't like these videos look at you and they're like, how could they like these videos? And the reason why you like it is probably on some level you also have a preconceived notion, okay? So what's gonna happen is, if you don't believe that there's water right here, your brain will block it out. I know that that's hard to believe, but if you don't think that there's water in this shot, you're gonna mostly notice the rocks, not the water. So if you have a victim mentality and you believe there's no opportunities, and in addition to that, you believe that you should get free money, then what winds up happening is you could have a million different opportunities in front of you, but you physically cannot see them. They are blocked to you. So we all live in the same physical reality, but we live in a different energetic reality. And once somebody believes they should be entitled to free money, that turns them basically into a chihuahua, right? They're a wolf, they're capable of hunting, But, you know, remember there's those old memes, right? The wolf is looking at the humans and he or she says, maybe I'll just go take a bite to eat from the humans. What's the worst thing that could happen? Fast forward a couple thousand years, it's like a chihuahua or a pug in a party hat, in a purse, right? So that's what happens when you get domesticated. You should never wish to be domesticated. You should never want anything for free. When my parents said, hey, Owen, here's our will, we want you to have that, I'm like, spend it. I don't want it. Don't give that to me. Okay, I never want anything for free. Don't want a handout because it is domesticating you. You want to have a desire to work for your money and have fair exchange, including to charge high rates, but it has to be a fair exchange. Okay, so make sure that you have that in your head. Never want free stuff. Never want it to be easier. Want yourself to build systems that make it easier, but don't want it to be easier, and never play the victim. No matter what, you are an overcomer. You're never, ever, ever the victim. If I were to break down to you the things that my business has gone through by being a more counterculture type of business and that we've still survived and thrived, your mind your brain would melt out of your ears. I don't even go into it because I don't want to encourage repeats of those things. But you've ultimately got to find ways to get around things. I don't care if there's a recession. I don't care if the planet ended. Whatever the case, you just got to figure it out. Okay? Nobody but you can figure it out. Okay? So unfortunately, we have a very, very large chunk of the workforce that is put in that mindset, which makes them in effect unhirable because they are not going to be solutions oriented and they are looking for things to be easier. It makes it virtually impossible to get anything done. So you don't want to be one of those people. And you, buddy, you take it easy. Okay, so going from there, that's the next one. Now, here's the next one. If you want to be somebody who's worth a lot of money, you've got to have a land the plane mentality. And what that means is that you're not one of these people that just sort of hears about the thing that has to get done and you kind of look into it and you're kind of present at the meetings. You're just the person who just gets it done. And you're the kind of person who doesn't rest until you get it done. And you're not the kind of person that just says, oh, well, I'm going to put in the hours until, I'm going to punch the clock and then when the clock is done, I'm going home. You can do that. Okay, and legally you have very high, a complete right to do that, by the way. But if you want to be somebody who people trust you to land the frickin' plane, then in your mind, what should happen is, if you're struggling and you can't figure out what's going on, your mind should start ramping up faster and faster and faster and faster. It should start thinking more laterally, looking at more solutions, digging in, getting a little bit OCD about it, finding solutions. And when you become the kind of person where people can count on you to produce a result no matter what, and basically what you've become is a turnkey solution for them, that is where you can go to them and you can demand they pay you more. So what I'll say to my team a lot of the time is I say, I want you to basically point a metaphorical, not real, but metaphorical gun at my head and say, you gotta pay me more. And what I mean by that is don't ask for a handout, but rather produce so much value that I'm having nightmares that you could leave, that I'm becoming reliant on you. Change the wolf to pug dynamic. And by the way, I just made that up now, even though I've referred to that analogy many times. I'm gonna literally use that like every video now. Change the wolf to pug dynamic where you are the wolf and I am the pug and I am asking the wolf for the handout. Okay, in other words, you are now producing so much value that I become dependent and reliant on you because you're such a turnkey solution that it plagues my nightmares that you could leave. Okay, so you basically just keep cranking up the value. Anytime that you make an excuse, you're killing that. You're getting out of momentum with that. So you've got to be the kind of person where you accelerate and get better when you can't quite find the solution. And you're just somebody that people view as a turnkey solution. You're just somebody who's just going to get it done and that's that. Or if you can't get it done, because there are certain limitations, I guess, sometimes, like rare, then you're the kind of person where you can actively be seen working harder and trying to figure it out. Now, here's the next one. The next one is lateral thinking. And lateral thinking is this idea of what else. What does what else mean? The most important question maybe in the entire world is just what else. The idea of what else is that, here's an example, right? I told one of my marketing guys, I said, hey, you know, we're going to be doing an event in Seattle. I'm actually driving up the coast right now. That's why we're at Redwood. We're going to be doing a free event in Seattle and San Francisco coming up. You can click the link below. I'm going to hit up Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Austin, Boston, DC, San Diego, Los Angeles, Miami is coming up, New York, Philadelphia. We're going to be hitting up everywhere. Okay, teams do it in Europe, doing all over the world. If you want to come, click the link below. If you can't come, still click the link because I'll put another link under there. You get a free course that'll show you the same kind of things at the free event. But really, in truth, being at the free event's the best because you can network, you get a lot of energy in person, and we do aspects that you can't get online. So click that link. Now, I remember I said to one of my marketing guys, I said, okay, let's make sure that we hit up everybody who's been to past Seattle events or done business with us in Seattle. So he hit up the people that had been to previous free events in Seattle. I said, well, what about people that have done live trainings with us in Seattle? He said, oh, yeah. I said, okay. I said, what about looking at anybody who's ever bought a digital product from us in Seattle? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, what about hitting up people who have done business with us in Portland or the general Northwest? Oh, yeah, right? And so, what about saying, hey, do you want to bring a friend? Offer them, say, hey, do you want to bring a friend, and we'll offer you a bonus for that. Oh yeah, right? Hey, maybe we could show some different promotional material on the front end of that free event so that more people want to come. Oh yeah, you see what's going on here? So there's always a what else, right? Now imagine that he comes to me and he's got all that down, and then I'm like, oh geez, I could never think of all that, right? Now the pug to wolf dynamic has been shifted. He's amazing, by the way. You might see this and he's gonna have a little laugh about it. But you see my point, is you always wanna be saying to yourself, what else haven't you thought of? What's the thing that you haven't thought of yet? And keep looping that in your mind. How can you optimize this further? How can you take this to another level? And really just keep doing that again and again. Now here's the last main point that I'm gonna bring up, and then I'm gonna tell you how to scale this into 7 figures and 8 figures, 9 figures and beyond. So the next thing that you wanna do is be willing to have what I would call a dark night of the soul. And a dark night of the soul is when you're messing up. Okay, most people do one of two things. They either do this thing where they completely bury their head in the sand like an ostrich, they ignore what's happening, or what they do is they self-attack as just an excuse to be in a negative state. Like, oh, I'm just so bad. And they do this kind of like, I'm so bad porn thing. It's super weird. And that's not helpful either. So it's either ignore the problem and say, I put in my hours, what? Like this kind of gelatin, like this jello jellyfish, just, it's like not even an entity, it's just this thing. Or what they wind up doing is they're like, I'm bad, stupid, and they attack themselves, which is not productive at all because it's not solutions oriented. Instead, what you want to do is you want to sit there, like you want to sit with your problems in sort of like this light hypnotic trance. And what I'll do is I'll say to myself, like, look, what do I want my life to look like? I'll just give you a couple things. I haven't been sick in 10 years. I want to be able to get out into the outdoors with my family because that's nurturing. I want to be able to afford, this sounds a bit crazy. I like to take ginseng that's about $1,500 a month, 100-year-old ginseng, 50-year-old ginseng. I want to be able to afford to do that. I want to be able to afford to have multiple houses. I want to be able to do work that I love. I want to be able to, instead of having to fly up rapidly to Seattle from Los Angeles, I want to be able to just cruise up the PCH through Big Sur, up through Mendocino, further up the Pacific Coast Highway here in Redwood. I want to drive the Oregon coast, maybe go to Crater Lake. I want to drive around Washington State, Mount Rainier, Olympic National Park, Cascades, Palouse Falls. I want to see this. And then I want to go do my event in Seattle, and I want to smash it. I want to crush it for everybody. And so I want to be able to live a life like that. I don't want to just have to do work that I don't like. I certainly don't want to work in a cubicle. I certainly don't want to be a wage slave. I certainly don't want to do things that don't interest me or excite me. I want to be able to change lives. I want to be able to impact people. I want people to be very, very appreciative for what it is that I bring to the table. So, when I'm carrying, say, $1 million a month in expenses, I get away from you real quick, and it has before, I'll put my head down for 2 seconds. I look back up, 300K in debt. Put your head back down, look back up, 500K in debt, because you have that kind of a run rate. A lot of people, if you're watching me on social media, you're like, oh, is that your whole business? Remember, I've had a business for several decades, so we have a client base over several decades among their friends and things like that. Many of my clients are people very, very wealthy. This is also where I've learned a lot of this, learning from people very, very wealthy, because often, even though I'm teaching them, I learn also from teaching them because I see how people operate at a high level. So understanding that it's okay to sit with the problem and cycle how bad your life is going to get if you don't fix it. And it's weird, like I'll see this with team members of mine where, we're having a lot of fun. They're making great money, they're traveling, they're doing beautiful things, and, maybe they're flipping out on people, or they're, to be honest, stealing and embezzling money, or doing things that are negative, or not being productive, or not finding solutions. And I'm thinking, have you ever actually just sort of gone into your brain and thought to yourself what your life's gonna look like if you mess this up? And look, on one level, you always want to be in abundance. That might even be like one of my upcoming videos today, like the importance of being in abundance and believing that there's a lot of opportunities out there. But I personally feel, and this is just a personal belief that I have, is that God gives you some opportunities, and if you just mess that up, God's like, okay, you don't like that opportunity, then I'm not going to give you any more. That's just a personal belief. I can't prove that. Just a personal subjective belief that I have that to me feels objective, but probably is ultimately subjective, even though I feel objective about it. So don't mess up opportunities. It's okay to some extent to feel scarcity about an opportunity. The whole point of abundance is that, you don't give people power over you where you need them so much that you start pandering them and chasing them and actually wind up pushing them away. It's better to kind of feel like you have options. But at the same time, if something is working well, don't just throw it away. Don't just burn it off. So what I do is I really sit there and I think, like, what is my life going to look like if I don't fix this at some point soon? And I go through that to motivate myself. Usually what I do is I'll allow myself maybe 3, maybe 5 mistakes. But if I see that it just keeps happening, I'm having compassion for myself, but I just keep making it again and again, I will really sit there. And it's funny because You know, my girlfriend, she's very, very big on not attacking herself because she used to attack herself quite a bit. So she'll see me looking like I'm attacking myself and she'll say, oh, baby, are you know, don't beat yourself up. You're beautiful. You're amazing. I'm like, stop. Stop telling me I'm beautiful, amazing. This is like, that's my natural self-dialogue. I've got too much of that. I have too much of that, okay? I have so much of you're beautiful and amazing that I get a pot belly. I don't need to hear I'm beautiful and amazing. I already think that in my mind delusionally. What I need to do instead is I need to actually look at my life in a way where I'm not viewing myself as beautiful and amazing, but I'm looking at my life objectively and I'm saying, you know what? If you don't fix this, life is gonna get bad. And then what that does is it begins to spur that creativity. It begins to spur that what else. And it creates a situation where I start to examine my different options. What is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I'm not optimizing? What is it that, you know, where am I not landing the plane? And, you know, at its core, I really feel that something like 80 or 90% of employees in general in the world do almost nothing. Like, I feel like most businesses, you could probably just get rid of like 80% of people. And yes, there'd be some chaos from it, but largely, you know, they're kind of just there to be present because usually what happens to business, it starts to thrive more and more. It makes more and more money. And then the business hits a point where they're not monitoring the books as much because they're thriving so much. And then you see all this kind of excess fat get in the system that doesn't even need to be there because, you know, the business just has enough cash to they're not monitoring what's coming in and what's going out as much. And then, you know, you hit into a recession, all of a sudden, all those people get cut, and guess what? The business is like, why didn't we cut these people 2 years ago? It's almost not different at all. And what happens is they're kind of what I call clock punchers, and they're just sitting there kind of, you know, clocking, you know, punching the time clock, and they're saying, it's not my fault. I put in the time, and look, that's their legal, it's their legal right to do that, and that's fine. But nobody also owes it to you to start banking, and paying you more. So you want to get to the point where you have that metaphorical gun to the head where you're saying, look, I'm providing such a turnkey solution that without me, it's over, right? That's what I always aim to do in my coaching. Was part of why I went out 7 nights a week to teach social coaching was I wanted to get to the point where I wanted to be like the Vitamix, but in the coaching and in the niche that I was in, right? If you look at Vitamix blender is about $500. And you're like, $500 for a Vitamix blender? I'm not buying that. And it's like, cool, well then buy this other one. And you look at it and like the next best one completely sucks. You know, Blendtec's in the same range and there's probably some other one I don't know about. There's probably better competitors at this point, but this was like 10 years ago when I bought a blender. And I remember I just shelled out, I think it was actually $700 for a blender for a Vitamix. And I did that because when you saw the other ones, they sucked so bad that you knew that you just had to get the Vitamix. It's like the 100-year-old ginseng, right? It's like you can, when you feel the difference, it's just so obvious that you're just like, all right, just take the $1,500. I got the cash, I don't care. Now, what winds up happening when you become this kind of person is your rates often will go up to things like $25K an hour, $100K for a session, things like that. Now, why does that happen? This is actually a massive indictment on our society. It's an indictment on our society because the average person who's really, really banking it is so starving for somebody who's actually half competent. It is so rare to find somebody who can actually get the result that when you're among the rare people that can do that, they are forced to overpay because it's that rare. So realize that. And then what you can do is that once you get to that point, you can take that money, you can invest it in the stock market, you can invest that into training. Really, when you're newer, you should put that into self-investment and building skills. Later, as you stack skills and stack health and stuff, then what you could do is you could put that into various other investments. And that's how you get very, very successful. So I'd encourage you to use this mindset on anything important in your life. This was the mindset that really, frankly, I learned from social skills. I found that in social skills, there were some people that would just go say hi to a bunch of people, but they never land the plane. They never bring new people in their life. They never have wild same-night adventures with people. It was always just, well, I said hi to a bunch of people. I went home. It's like, it's not just about saying hi to a bunch of people and going home by yourself. It's about saying hi to a bunch of people and going home and meeting somebody. And yes, we want to have a love for the process because that's what makes you amazing, but we have to be loving the process itself, but still aiming at the goal that we have. And so that's what it means to be results-oriented. So being that kind of results-oriented people makes you that 1 in 1,000 kind of person. It shoots up your rate. It frankly scares people that you could leave. And frankly, even if you're an employee at that point, you're never really an employee because you're almost like the boss of your boss. And it's crazy to think about that. And then you just scale it from there. So that was just a quick little rant that I want to give you on how to get up the actual value that you offer to the world. I'm actually going to take my kids up in the redwoods. There's some beautiful giant redwoods here. We'll keep shooting. Hope that you enjoyed this video, and we'll be back with more soon. Peace.